Uh,
Hello, my name is Mark Monlux, and you're joined us for another episode of Epic Sketch Time. With me today is Ian and Bill. I'll let them introduce themselves after I do mine. All of us you can find in the information below in the descriptions. I'm a freelance illustrator in Tacoma, Washington. I've got a couple books out of compilation of cartoon movie reviews called The Comic Critic Presents Seldom Seen Films and The Comic Critic Presents Blockbusters. Those and other things can be found at my store. Gentlemen.
Hi, I'm Bill Morse. I'm a freelance illustrator and cartoonist working out of Seattle, Washington, and I do a webcomic called Rhapsodies, which you can find at rhapsodies.wpmorse.com.
Hey everybody, my name is Ian Castruita. I'm an artist, illustrator, and comic artist working out of Tempe, Arizona. You can check out my stuff at unfedartist.com. And how's it going, guys?
It's going. Glad the holiday's finally over and beginning to still recovering from my exercise of masochism that was my Christmas story, and
right
pretty much ate my buffer, which is...
Ian, you've been trying to get your strip up and running again. Did you have much success, or have you been busy with after Christmas work?
Yeah, well, the holiday stuff. Actually, I'm glad you asked, because it gives me something to show you guys. Yeah, the holiday always just kind of kills my kills my plans. But let me see what I can share with you guys.
Is that watercolor you were?
Yeah, so I had 3 major illustration projects. Well, major is probably too too generous. Yeah. Let me see what I can do for you. Okay, so say hello to my Adobe Bridge. What do I got for you? So I got my greeting card. This is what I sent out to everybody. Can you guys see?
Yeah, the cookie.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to do full screen on it. I don't know if you guys get the full screen or not. Let me.
No, it's pretty. I can make out what you got, but
here, let's do this.
Here.
That might be as good as I can get it. But yeah, I make my Christmas card for family and clients every year, and this year I knew I was going to be late because of the other projects, so I made a procrastinating Santa Claus, and I put that on the front of the card, and then kind of gave like a weak explanation for what's the word, belated Happy Christmas or Merry Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that went out, and I was actually pretty happy with this. You know, it's sometimes the projects that you kind of just do last minute that you know, end up working out the best for some reason. But not that I want to make a habit of that.
Though actually, I know what you mean. I've been finding I get some of my best inspirations whenever I'm doing those sketch challenges.
Yeah.
And partially because the rules of it and the deadline you inflict on it essentially forces you to crank out. It's sort of, I suppose it's an adrenaline thing.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you for sure, but anyway, let's see. So for my client, their holiday card. Let's see how I have a. Gotta have a working file here.
I think I saw this one. Were you showing this off last time?
Yeah, I could have. So this was like a client-directed holiday card. They wanted something very specific. They actually told me like every little aspect that they wanted in this card, including like the North Star in the background, and you know, a night sky and backlit windows and all that stuff. And it was such a highly directed illustration project that I for a moment, I was kind of like just trying to figure out how to make it all fit in as a single scene and make the scene, you know, work. One of the things I've been struggling with ever since I attended the IMC last year was that most of my stuff has this perspective where it's like seen from like straight on the horizontal.
Right.
It's not like seen from above or below, you know, something that would be more dynamic and interesting. So that's one of the things that I really wish I had more time to work on. But, you know, as it turned out, it just kind of worked the way it needed to for this. So I got that. And then one more thing. I'm pretty sure you guys wouldn't have seen this yet. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Okay. All right. So this is a kind of a painting that I did for an advertisement, and this isn't published yet. So, but a charity art auction that's going to be in Phoenix later on, and my client wanted kind of a subtle reference to themselves, but they really wanted to focus on the beneficiary of the charity art auction, and their symbol is a dove. So I won't go into too much more detail because it's not released yet. But yeah, this was actually one of my more fun projects, just because I don't get to paint that often. And even though it's digitally, you know, I tried really hard to give it that painterly kind of look. So, and I'm guessing you guys are kind of upset by the negative space here. That's where
I was assuming that's where the text was, or
yeah, that's where the text is going. So, but it bugs me too. I know. Just it's gonna be okay.
Oh, and speaking of the holidays, I have to show off. I accidentally left my sketchbook at my parents' when I was visiting there, but I finally got it back. So had some of the shots I had from drawing at the RISD Museum of Fine RISD Museum in Providence. Well, this is this is of two exchange students who were staying with my cousin and were visiting my folks for Thanksgiving.
That's cool.
And let's see, it's really neat Roman sarcophagus at RISD, where it's really cool how you could recognize all the gods on the top.
Yeah, I love doing like sketches of classical stuff like that. That's a lot of fun.
It's good exercise, I find. The only downside is if you go to this one I really liked. It was sort of German. It looked like they were in wood, and the amount of control and the cartoonishness of it was very interesting.
As long as we're all showing off Christmas projects, this is a cartoon I put on a Christmas card this year.
Oh,
that is awesome.
That's an old one, isn't it?
Yeah, this is from, I think this is from 2008, but I decided, you know, I'll go ahead, I'll just take a pre-existing piece of art and I'll put it on a card, and on the inside I wrote, have a holly jolly Christmas, but X'd out the Y and put hollow.
Yeah, nice.
And so I printed off about 100 of these. I figured, you know, maybe I can sell some of them at the conventions.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And if not, then I'll at least have Christmas cards for the next few years.
Oh, that's cool.
I used to do a full-page Christmas comic, and then I was doing Christmas animations. But stopped doing those once Facebook came around, and and you could just do something as a quick JPEG and post it online. But a lot of my Luddite clients kind of lost track of me because of that.
Creepy Cake wasn't enough for them anymore.
Oh, hey, no, I'm talking about Luddites, people who aren't even on Facebook. Creepy Cake has always been a staple of of Facebook for me. By the way, people who aren't on my Facebook follow, if I see your birthday, I always send out the same cartoon. It's this hastily drawn birthday cake with a face on it, and when I was coloring it, my first draft of color came out so wonky and creepy looking. I decided to call, and the cake was so lumpy looking. I thought I'm just going to call him Creepy Cake, and I did the drawing in like 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But something hasty often has an appeal, and I have been. And after the first year, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep recycling this guy. And that cartoon is now 10 years old. And look forward to their annual Creepy Cake on Facebook.
I can't mock, since I've been using almost the same birthday card for almost as long.
And I do have something else I'd like to show you guys. As you can see, I'm currently drawing trees. This is part of a poster I'm working on. And this is the poster that I'm doing. It's for Dead Snow.
Nice.
And I'm pretty happy with how the face and the blood on the snow is. I'm kind of figuring out a way that I need to put more detail into the snow, like on the blood, to make it look more rough and icy looking. Got the little cabin in the background. I need to do some. I'm pointing with my hands and not my arrow. So I need to do some blends. This white in the background will actually have trees and be another blend. But I need to draw all the trees, so that's what I'm going to be spending my time doing.
And yeah, is that client work?
No, this is
it's the that movie theater.
Yeah. Oh. Friday Night Frights, and I'm way behind on this because I've been helping out with other things, and I need to take this to the printer tomorrow.
Oh wow! Yeah, get to work.
I just started working on it pretty much on Saturday, but I couldn't work. I didn't have hardly any time to work on it on Saturday because one of the reasons I've been so busy is when I haven't been doing real work. I've been helping out notifying people on a memorial party for a mutual friend that Bill and I have named Dan Ballard, who died unexpectedly back in, was it early December? Yeah, it was December 7th.
Yeah, I think I saw your newsletter to the guild on that. So, I didn't really know the guy, but clearly he was a important part of everybody's life over there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when the SBGA became a chapter of the Graphic Artists Guild, this was back in '94. Dan got a citation from the organization for his assistance in helping for the smooth transition. And he then went on to capture. He's always been the unofficial chapter historian or a group historian, keeping all the minutes, and not just the minutes, but every notification we've ever sent out, every promotional poster, every article that a fellow member was in a magazine or something. He was keeping track of all of that. And so
this was his own initiative.
Yep. He pretty much inherited the archives from the previous chapter. All of it will belong to a guy named Bill Warbeck at one time, who was one of the original founders of the SBJ. But now I have all this stuff sitting in my living room, and I'm trying to find a library to take it all on, because there's like 12 boxes.
Wow.
Because our group did a lot in this. I mean, we had portfolio shows for a period of about 10 years. The first one we called Sea Cruise, and then after that we called them Art Jams. And this was back before the internet, and a great way, about the only way to show your work around town was to go to a client's place and show your portfolio. Well, this was a way to invite all the art buyers into one location to look at all the illustrators in town. So the illustrators, basically it was a non-profit type thing. We put together, imagine something like a comic book convention, but without the comics, just professional portfolios. And people handing out samples and business cards and things of that nature. And we would get, on average, between 1,200 to 2,200 people showing up. And these are active art buyers, people in the industry who were buying illustration to use in ads and things. And you just don't see stuff like that anymore because everything's done on the internet now.
Yeah.
But and so he kept, and on top of that, he never tossed anything away that was related to the group. Like before we had emails, we would send faxes to each other. Because that was a quick way, a great way of, he liked to be able to keep track of our conversation. So he would send me a fax, and then I would call him up, or I would write back to him on the fax and send the fax back. Or I would call him up to talk about something, but he would go ahead and take whatever notes. He would take notes and write the notes on the fax. And here's a box full of faxes going, for that window of time of about 10 years when we were communicating through faxes rather than emails. And then I have another box that's nothing but emails because he would print those out as well. So he was extremely meticulous, but I'm probably going to have to, unless I find a library to take all this, it'll probably go by the wayside in a dumpster, which is kind of sad. I do know that back in 2002, he put together a history of the Graphic Artists Guild, and I believe you also include the SBJ history into it, and he did that for the Guild. So I know that the Guild has lots of boxes. He got a bunch of information from the Guild, kept copies, and mailed it back. But yeah, he put together that history. And I'm sure that forms, it went out in a publication at the time, but it probably needs updating. I would send all this stuff to the national office, but I just don't think they'd have room, and I don't think they could afford all the freight.
Huh. Well, it'd certainly be a shame if you had to throw that stuff away. I think at the very least, like finding a way to digitally, capture it or something, so that there's at least a digital archive.
Digitally capturing it would take me 5 years.
Well, I'm not suggesting you do it, but
who's going to do it?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So,
So I'm hoping to. I'm definitely going to have to trim down a lot of the stuff because I'm pretty sure nobody wants emails. A lot of places will take minutes, and I have been able to find some really old minutes, like stuff that going back to 1967. I think is the oldest batch of minutes I have, and these minutes are pretty extensive. They include letters and articles that people wrote about certain concerns, letters from various clients. Anyway, it's you inherit somebody's library of stuff. And one of the other things is he had a rough draft of a book that he had put together called The Theory of Everything that dealt with graphic design. Now, he told me about this book before and said that he had pretty much abandoned it because he just couldn't figure out a way of compiling it together in a cohesive manner. If you've ever met Dan, he had, well, you probably never met Dan. Dan would have a little notebook with him at all time, or little pieces of paper that were paper clipped together, and he was constantly writing notes. And he had a little his handwriting is extremely clear and legible, so which is really nice.
It's very cool.
But he would write down his initial notes in use a black ink pen, and then if he was responding to or making a comment on a note, he'd use a red ink pen. So there was even a logic to all of it. But I'm wondering if sometimes the sheer volume of it is what kind of got him from working on it too often. We all have our pet projects,
Mm.
Yeah, well, I mean, even my old tax records, I hold on to them because I know that I needed to scan them in and everything. And I have a nice scanner that can go through stuff really quick, but I have stuff going back to 2005 right now, and I just need to scan it in and throw it away. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that, it just keeps on piling up. So I can only imagine how many things you have over there. How many boxes you said? 10 boxes?
It's about that 10, 12.
And are they legal boxes or what? Banker boxes? Whatever you call them?
Those type of boxes that you would get. I got 2 large bins for the oversized stuff, like the 11 by 17 posters and things. And then a lot of them are basically whenever you would buy a box of Xerox paper.
Okay. Yeah.
I would say they're about that size.
It sounds like an episode of This American Life. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I love This American Life.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like something where there's some reporter that comes across this archive of history, and then it suddenly just becomes obsessed with it and wants to tell the story. I mean, really, that's the type of stuff that those NPR shows love, right? Because there's just so much history and passion and little nuances to discover. I mean, who knows what kind of stories are hidden in all that stuff? Maybe there was like adultery or something inside inside some meeting notes.
Well, and then you have I'm sure that the people in This America Life has the same problem when you're trying to reduce it down to a 20-minute episode.
Oh yeah.
What do you have? You basically have a soap opera. I mean, this group started in 1955. Because, okay, so imagine this. It's right after World War II. You're an illustrator. You're trying to make a buck. It's kind of tough. It's right after the war. And you're doing okay. You and your friends, you're getting together once a week for lunch just because you like to hang out. Maybe definitely once a month, but you're usually getting together you have sort of a standing lunch appointment once a week because, as you know, being a freelancer is a very isolating profession, always has been. And they would air their grievances and talk about, who's doing what to who in the business, where the next project was coming from, And then they all find out that the employees at Boeing who have full-time paying gigs have started doing freelancing work and were undercutting the market rates by well over 40% because these guys were working in an office and had no idea how much to charge something in the real market. So they were just horrendously undercutting these people. And they were trying to figure out a way so that they stop these people from doing that. They said, well, they're not going to take a letter from a bunch of random guys and illustrators seriously. Maybe if we were, an organization, they said, well, why don't we just say we're a group, make a letterhead, put something together, and send it on their letterhead. They thought, oh yeah, we're designers. We can design letterheads. That's not a problem. So they did that. And Boeing wrote back saying that they put out a memo to their employees to that if they were an employee in Boeing, that they couldn't freelance.
Huh.
Yeah, which is something, you know, you could do back in the day. And because the last thing Boeing wanted was bad PR from a group of, you know, people fresh back from the war. And then that's when this group of guys realized, hey, wow, we've got clout. We can do stuff. Let's do some more stuff. And that's when they really, you know, got down to brass tacks. Washington State now has the best tax code for creative professionals in the country. New York has a pretty good tax code, but Washington State's is the most concise and clear in just like 3 sentences. And they worked on it for about 20 years before they got that passed.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah. One of the reasons that the SBJ decided to join the Graphic Artists Guild, also the SBJ got started like 12 years before the Guild did. And one of the reasons they joined the Guild was because the Guild was working and influencing the marketplace on a national level, whereas this group has always just remained state level. So that was a big argument for there was a big debate because, oh man, there was the SBGA. I'm just rambling on. We'll call this the history episode. But the SBJ, you had to be a freelancer in order to be a member of the SBGA. You could not come to the meetings more than 2 times unless you joined. Photographers were not allowed, only illustrators and graphic artists. No typesetters. They did allow in people on an associate member level during the 70s, like typesetters and lawyers, but they couldn't be voting members. And that really made for anyone who was a freelancer belong to the group, because we do these things called show and price, where we would talk about a project we had, show it to everybody, and then everybody would ask questions like, you know, okay, how many hours did you work, or how many revisions, what was the client like, what was this situation, what was that situation. And then once you were done answering the questions, they would all bid on it and say how much they would have charged for the same project. Not what you should have got, but how much they would charge. So we weren't getting in trouble with the FCC or anything because we weren't price fixing. We were just saying, hey, this is how much I charge. And then you would have to confess to the group how much you got. And there were sometimes you get a round of applause saying, oh yeah, you did a good job. That's a great fee. I'm glad you got that. And other times there were situations where people were booed. Just flat out booed. Like this one, people put together this big event, kind of like this big music festival. And they got jeered. They literally got jeered for how low they came in. And sure enough, that particular group, that little agency of people, didn't last more than 3 more months because, you know, if you don't charge going rates, you just can't make it. And knowing the race and being part of this group really was a great way of having your finger of the pulse. And also, just the knowledge in this group, how to deal with clients, strategies to do, ways of talking to people. I mean, I joined the group because I was getting death threats from people because I didn't realize it was undercutting. I was so new to the marketplace, I had no idea what to charge.
You were getting death threats?
Oh yeah, I got called up. I was getting calls saying, "Listen, you're only charging." Oh my god, and I deserved it too because there was like this one brochure I only charged like $68 for.
Wait, what year was this?
This was 1986.
Okay. Yeah, I'm guessing that was still pretty low back then. Like,
oh, that's beyond low.
Yeah.
Typically back then, and in the 90s, you could figure out just for the design work, no illustration, $1,000 for a surface space of an 8.5 by 11 by an 8.5 by 11. And that was back before the advent of computers, when you would have to figure out the math and you'd have to do these markers and simulate fonts and text and color and layouts using Pentels or Pantone markers.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, clients would have to use their imagination too. You'd have to say, "Hey, and can you imagine a client seeing anything other than print-ready materials to proof these days?"
Absolutely not. No.
So. Anyway.
So you survived. You lived.
Oh yeah, it's totally because of this group. Anyway, this is where I met our friend Dan. I went to a luncheon, sat next to. I figured, okay, I'll sit next to that young guy to feel comfortable, and I'll sit next to that older guy because he knows what he's doing. And the two people in the room I decided to sit next to were Bill Werbeck, who was one of the founders, and Dan Ballard, who's one of the new guys. He had just joined. You know, we teased each other so much over the years of whether or not he joined the year before or the month before that I honestly can't remember which was which. But yeah, you lose a friend like that, someone you've known for decades, and it's a real punch in the gut. So he had the memorial came off really nice. There was quite, a couple hundred people must have shown up. Wouldn't you say there were a couple hundred people there, Bill?
I mean, I heard the guesstimate was 200, and I can easily believe that.
Did he have family and kids and all that?
No, but he was just an older brother of a family of 5.
Okay.
His mother suffered from Alzheimer's, and she had just died not long ago. I think it was less than 2 years ago, if that.
That's sad. How long was that going on for?
Oh, the Alzheimer's? Quite a time, because I think there was also another member of the family who also had Alzheimer's.
Oh, jeez.
So when there was a notification saying, "Oh, please donate in lieu of flowers," donate funds to Alzheimer's, everyone was saying, "Well, did Dan die of Alzheimer's?" No, he didn't die of Alzheimer's. It was just his favorite charity.
Right.
But you can't help people making their own assumptions.
Yeah, no, I felt guilty about my assumption.
So, what did he do artistically? Was he an illustrator or a comic artist, or?
Yeah, he was an illustrator and a graphic artist.
Okay.
He had a much better sense of design than I did.
Was he known for anything, or was he just a working guy?
He was a working guy. Though in recent years, he was having a harder time making ends meet than a lot of us. I know that during the big recession we had, he ended up working as a city clerk. And more recently, he was working at Lowe's because freelancing is just brutal.
Oh, wow. So he had to take a retail job?
Yeah, he had to take a retail job. But even there, he was still doing illustration, I think.
Yeah. When I talked to him last, apparently he was doing a mural for them. Well, not a mural, but some of the advertisements.
Yeah, no, he did a mural. He also did a mural inside the store. There was a competition amongst all the stores over who could have the best mural, and I think he won. So that was one of the photos that was up on the, you know how people put together life boards.
Right. Yeah, that's tough. That's one of my fears is having to go back to retail. I mean, I'm still about I guess this is my third year being self-employed, but you know, it still feels kind of like even though my client is really happy and everything, it kind of feels like, oh, you know, I don't know, like maybe a month out or something bad will happen. So, but so he had a big project that he didn't want to finish because it was too unwieldy or.
Well, I think he was often pulled. I think he had too many big projects.
Oh, I know that feeling.
I mean, his book, The Theory of Everything, you know, yeah, he worked on that and he had that in the box. And then he always said that he wanted to do a really comprehensive thing of the history of the guild and the SBJ. But, you know, where do you start with, you know, 13 boxes worth of stuff? Who knows how far he got electronically? I don't have his electronic files. I just had his, you know, physical files, all the reference material.
Who does have that?
I'm guessing his family does. Basically, his apartment had to be cleared out pretty quickly. So, an ex-girlfriend of his, who's also a designer, I actually introduced them. She was contacted by the family, and then she sent me a text. And so she went up, and because the family just wanted to go through his stuff by themselves, but they figured that anything that was, you know, guild related, they would put aside for me. So she just loaded all that into her car and later gave it to me rather than me coming up and trying to sort through. And they basically had a day to clear out his apartment and make decisions and judgment calls. But so yeah, I'm sure that a lot of his, they had several of his portfolio pieces up on the wall being shown to people. But a lot of the stuff that he did was, you know, type of schlock that all artists do. Like he did a ton of animation work for Humongous, which was a gaming company, one of the early gaming companies here in town. And he still had the employee manual for that, along with all the notes of, you know, who was in which office, where, you know, maps of the building so that he'd know who to call and where to go to, and also all the notes on the particular way that they did illustration and stuff like that.
Yeah, that type of stuff is just like endlessly fascinating to, I guess, just to people like us, right? Like, I mean, we can
just to people. What I'm doing is I think I'm just going to have to sit down, look at it once, and then throw it in the dumpster. Like,
right.
Because, for example, back in the day, the newspaper circulars that you get with all those ads that are thrown inside of them, the thing. Sure. Well, he used to do those for Eagle Hardware. And there, you know, that was a weekly project that would consume a lot of his time. And I have some of the original template boards that he created for that, and several pieces of samples that he kept. But I'm sure that who wants to keep an old newspaper ad from 1995.
Yeah. An artist would, but that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're proud of how you put that one together, you know, but
right.
And I've kept a copy of everything I've ever done. And I'm sure that you probably do too.
I try.
I
have journals that go back to when I was 15, and yeah, same thing. Like I love to like just like digitally capture them and all that stuff because I think I have like I mean I didn't like write a page each day or something, so I only have about like 16 books or something, but it's just like photos and notes and a lot of memories in there. So yeah, I hope my family, if I ever pass away, doesn't say, well, I'm going to read it once and throw it away.
I have two bookshelves worth of my old sketchbooks, and that's not counting the really old ones I have in my closet.
Well, like you, Ian, I've got a whole shelf that's nothing but my journals that I've kept over the years.
Yeah.
Just written pages.
Yep. Yeah.
And I stopped keeping written ones and started typing everything in instead. But now I'm still even going back and slowly transcribing. There was a period for 1 year where I made a New Year's resolution that I would transcribe at least one daily changeover.
Did you keep that?
Yeah, I did that for a year. I got a lot of transcribing done.
Yeah, I just want to scan my stuff. I don't think I could transcribe it all, but...
Well, these weren't like yours. They didn't have drawings in them. They were just notes. When I travel, I do travel journals where I paste in things and I write things and I draw cartoons at the same time. My trip to Australia would be scanned in. I think I have my trip to Hawaii is still up and online somewhere. That's from about 15 years ago. Well, someone say something, I want to look at somebody else's work besides my own for a while and just drawing
something.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, I have a lot of digital stuff now. In fact, I kept a blog, like an old blogger blog from like I want to say 2004 up until like 2009, and I would just rant and put drawings and stuff on there. But it never got traffic. It was back in the day when bloggers were becoming famous and like making money and stuff off their website, which was why I was doing it. But I did enjoy writing in it and all that stuff, and I eventually I kept it on the website database, but I took it offline because I wanted to kind of rebrand myself. And plus, it was only a few months ago when people were getting in trouble for like really old tweets and stuff, and not that I'm worried about that, but it's just too easy to dig into somebody's internet history and like come up with something that looks bad. So I decided why run the risk if I didn't even really care about whether or not people were reading it. But yeah, I mean, just the digital stuff that I have that's like floating around, and the written stuff that I have floating around. I mean, I think I nourished this small kind of like fancy that, after I passed away, somebody's going to be like, oh, well, this is the life of Ian, and just have it like collected or something. And not that they would open a museum, but, like if like, say my little nephew, he's only 7 right now. If like when he was 19, he's like, I want to learn more about my uncle, he could, right? Mm-hmm. But if anything, today's lesson is that, most of this stuff is probably going to get disappeared or thrown away, or, they're going to erase, Blogger or something like that. I mean, it's
hard enough protecting it in your lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, I was having when I was visiting my folks for Thanksgiving, one of my less savory tasks was protecting my old comic book collection.
Oh yeah, my old comics. Yeah,
it's sort of like, and I'm going, Mom, just because I don't believe they're the equivalent of bearer bonds anymore, does not mean I want you to put them in the recycling bin.
Doesn't she just want you to get them out of her house at this point, Bill?
You really do need to take them out.
Your mom could not be your storage unit. I learned that like 20 years ago.
Yeah,
you're going to inherit your mom's stuff pretty soon before you know it. And then you're gonna be stuck tossing. Oh my God, my parents are like in their 80s, and they love taking photographs. There's one wall of our house that's nothing but photographs albums. I don't have room for those photograph albums. I don't think they're going to stay there afterwards. So I scanned in quite a bit of them, but even doing that, they don't write down where they've been.
Yeah, I mean, my cousin, that was the big holiday project that my father and my cousin were doing all Thanksgiving weekend, where just doing super high depth resolution scans of all of my grandparents' photos.
Now, I was lucky in that when I was in Japan, most of the photos I took were slides, and they were just sitting in a box. And then last year, a friend of mine purchased a gizmo that scans slides at a really nice high resolution.
Nice.
And I paid him $100, and he scanned them all for me. That was nice.
Yeah, there's services that they'll take old photos and stuff, and they'll digitize it for you. But it's I mean, obviously it's money, right? So I don't know if you can get away with $100, but
yeah, because my cousin had a device, this slide scanner device, is just doing them en masse. The only ones that he was having trouble with were the really old ones that still had cardboard frames.
Yeah, that's the ones that kind of get stuck with this guy's too. But he was doing them, about 50 at a shot, or basically a box's worth. So.
Yeah, I guess there's nothing you could do with old stuff unless you're like super famous. Nobody's going to care, as much as you do.
And I'm thinking, I really need to trim. My friend, I have a friend now. His name's Joe. He's an architectural photographer, and his wife was an avid art collector. Well, Joe wants to move into a smaller house, and his wife's, been dead for a good while now. And so he's basically been selling all this art bit by bit on Etsy. And he's not trying to get a steal. He's just, or make a fortune out of it. He's just trying to get rid of it. And he sold, somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000 worth of art over the last 2 years. Just because he's been, and we're talking smaller pieces. Like this woman had a collection of, say, I think it was 30 or so Chinese baby caps that were done with embroidery and with beads. And apparently it's something in China that they do for babies. You give your little kid this little hat that's made out of beadwork for fancy occasions. She had like 30 of them. She had beaded African headdresses, the big things that wore on top of their head with, fanciful birds made out of beads. She had 3 of those, so.
Wow. There was a book I came across of some school janitor, I think in New York City.
Oh, I've heard about this guy with his.
Oh, I heard about that too. I didn't read the article, but I saw the headline.
Oh, dude, you gotta read the article and look at his work. His work is phenomenal. Go ahead, Ian. We're just preempting.
No, I got the reaction I needed. I'm fine. But yeah, for those that are watching, I guess there was this guy. He passed away. And when somebody opened up like the janitor closet or I guess den or whatever it was, they found like just massive amounts of artwork that he was working on, and he never went out to display them or anything, but he was just prolific with this artwork that he did on his own. He never showed to anybody, but it became a collection and a book and stuff, and it was just by all things considered, just a nobody. But here he was making something that was amazing that by the reactions of Bill and Mark, you could clearly see, mattered and to some extent. So I guess you can't lose faith that, all your collecting and everything that, is just going to be sold on Etsy or, eBay or, scanned and forgotten at the very best, and at the very worst, just like lost or thrown away. But if only there was like some kind of way just to make it, exist and persist, so people, if they wanted to, could actually find it.
I have a really sad story. So
it's 5:30,
and I want to tell it before we end this show.
Yeah.
So these pulp artists did all this great pulp artwork that's been out there in the world, and this guy did pulp magazine artwork, and he did paperback. And that was his grunt work. That wasn't his fine artwork. And he kept all of it. He managed to keep all those paintings and get them back from when he died. His wife lit that barn on fire and just burnt it to the ground.
Oh, jeez.
Because she didn't want him to be remembered for his pulp work, but for his fine artwork. But nobody remembers his fine artwork. They're all clamoring for his pulp, the stuff that he did when he was a pulp artist, but it's gone.
Jeez, that's awful.
So here she was, a wife, thinking, no, I want to protect his legacy, and she burns it to the ground.
Yeah, that sucks.
That's depressing, because sometimes that's the best stuff for the. For example, whenever I visit my folks in Maine, we go up to the Wyeth museums. And some of his I'm not talking the book illustrations, some of the stuff, the very pulp stuff he did for magazines and sheet music is just amazing.
Yeah. All of it has value, right? You can't decide that, I want to be, remembered as a pottery person or something like that. But anyway.
I want to show this. There's something I learned this week. Doing opacity in Illustrator. So here in Photoshop, I would put a color on the layer, and then I would just control that the opacity of the layer. But in Illustrator, what you do is you select your color, which I have grouped here, and then you go up to Appearance, the Appearance menu, and then in the Appearance you have Group, Contents, and then underneath there you have opacity, and you can change the opacity of that color and just change it. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were working in Illustrator now. What do you think about that?
I started off in Illustrator once when it first came out, and was a vector artist for years, and then I switched back over to Photoshop. But I did all this using the blob tool, which is this little tool right here on the paint menu, right underneath the paintbrush.
Yeah.
You can control. This would be completely impossible without a touch-sensitive palette, which I didn't have for years. So you can control the size and shape of your brush. I'm working on a very small one right now. I'll just move it up for, like, say, 18 points for to show an example. And then you can create, and then you can also control, when you do that, the range of size that you want. Like I have it set for variation of 1 point, fidelity 2 point, smoothness, size, let's see, change, let's see, I'll go ahead and change this angle to 13. I must have I don't think I have my pressure set, but there's a way so that you can go between thick and thin.
All right. Well, maybe save it for next week's Epic Sketch Time.
For next week.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the opacity thing was cool. It's been helping me out doing this particular project, and one of the things that have been holding me back on doing stuff in Illustrator before.
Nice. I mean, I've been sort of trying to start practicing flesh out my skills a little bit ever since Stowe did a tutorial on the blob tool. Makes all the difference.
So, thank you everyone for joining me for our first episode of Epic Sketch Time. And I hope to see you guys all next week. I'll fill in the descriptions and post this video up tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, take care, guys. We'll see you next time.
You'll have a good one.